grunted in approval. Karen put the key in the accelerator and turned on the central heating, but I was still cold. She took off her red sweater and draped it over my shoulders. I thanked her with my eyes and slowly drifted off to sleep as the car jolted into motion. Next thing I knew, I was being shaken awake. The boys had gone, and so had the remains of Karen's beer. She was obviously drunk, and her face was green. I don't think I can drive, she said, looking at me pleadingly. With a sigh, I took the keys and started the car. I hadn't got my license, but after all, I was 17, and I hadn't even drunk half my beer. I was sure we'd get home easily, no problem at all. On the way back, Karen cheered up considerably. She and I were laughing and joking as the car whipped around curves at 70 miles per hour. The radio was turned on full blast. Karen said something funny. I can't remember what, and I laughed so hard I missed the turn, and Karen's little red Beetle went slam into the oak tree. I woke up in a hospital bed around 4 the following evening. Apparently, a passerby had found us in the smashed car and called 911. When I woke up, dazed and confused with a huge white bandage around my head, I demanded where Karen was. When told she hadn't made it by a passing nurse, I wouldn't stop screaming. My arms flailed and I kicked at everything, kicking over the expensive equipment and breaking the lamp. I couldn't stand it. My best friend was dead, and all I had was a black eye, a broken leg, and a concussion. How could I ever forgive myself? I was told Karen lived for 3 or 4 minutes after the wreck, but her internal injuries were too bad for the doctors to save her. When I had to see Karen's mom and dad at her funeral, I apologized and ended up in tears. Her parents wouldn't even accept my apology. They just walked away. I felt angry at them at first, but then I decided it was understandable. I'd feel the same way. School was a nightmare for months afterwards. Karen had always been popular, much more than me. People saw me in the corridors and they whispered about me being the girl that killed Karen. In court, I pleaded innocent to manslaughter. The whole thing was a horrifying experience, one that I'll never forget. It changed my life. Without thinking straight, I picked up a shoebox under my bed and started delving through it until I found the article. I hold it up to my face and try and read it through the tears. Girl, driving drunk, kills best friend. Underneath it said, Ellie White, 17, had been driving home from a night of drinking and smoking when she hit a tree. Her best friend Karen, 17, had been killed in the wreck. The paper described Karen as a lovely, vibrant girl, so full of life. They called me a ruthless blonde who couldn't think. How could they say such things? How could anyone say such things? Then suddenly the image of Karen comes floating back. She looks the same as before, a little sadder. The image winks and brushes away a tear, then fades. For Karen's birthday that year, October 17th, I came to her grave with a card and a birthday cake. There I found her grandma, her mom, and her dad. I thought they'd send me away after being as awful as they were at the funeral. But instead, her mom hugged me and told me she didn't blame me anymore. Her grandma and dad stood in the background, wiping away tears. I hugged Karen's mom hard and told them all again, I am so sorry.
Do you remember maybe your grade school teachers dragging you down to the gymnasium to learn how to square dance? The girls went up to touch any smelly old boys, and the boys went up to hold hands with any cootie-infested girl. Well, in my selection, Miss Mack in the 4th grade class learned about square dancing, young love, and revenge. Horrible Harry and the Square Dance by Susie Klein. Miss Mack was stood in front of the room. This Friday, we're going to have a square dance. What? Oh, man! All the boys groaned. Except Harry. I know what Harry was thinking. He wanted to dance with Song Lee. Harry's had a crush on Song Lee since kindergarten. That's when she brought in a potato beater for show and tell. She didn't say anything, but she passed a small little box around with a small little striped bug in it. Harry looked at the bug, then at Song Lee. It was true love. That Friday afternoon, Miss Mackle led her class down to the gym. She had a record under her arm. It was the Virginia Reel. Now I want the boys to line up behind Sydney and the girls to line up behind Mary. I don't want to dance with her, Sydney said, looking at Mary across from him. Miss Mackle put the record down. She looked at Sydney. She had her hands on her hips. Sydney, one of the reasons I have dancing is we need to learn manners. Sydney put her head down. Smell of stink old girls, man. We must say thank you to everyone that we dance with. Being polite is very important. After a moment of silence, Miss Mackle added, anyone who does not agree with these rules can dance with the teacher after school. Oh! Sydney turned green. All the girls giggled and all the boys groaned. I did too. Dancing with the teacher would be deadly. Miss Mackle showed the girls how to curtsy. Then she showed the boys how to bow. Everyone practiced. I made a face. I hate to dance. It doesn't help that I wasn't blessed with coordination. When I looked across the floor, I looked at my partner. It was Song Lee. Harry gave me a jab on the side. Move over, I'm dancing with her. I didn't mind at all. There were more boys and girls, and no one was standing next to Song Lee. You have Miss X, Miss Mackle said to me. I beamed. Dancing with no one wasn't bad at all. Miss Mackle then showed us how to do the Virginia Reel. Harry walked over and took Song Lee's hands. He wanted to get ready early. Not yet. I haven't even turned the music on, Harry. Everyone laughed at him. Harry held up his fist. When the music finally did go on, the boys walked across the floor and bowed, and the girls walked across the floor and curtsied. Now let's do the Virginia Reel. Sidney walked over and took Mary's hands. His eyes were closed. They sashayed down the center, and then they joined their lines. You didn't stop and twirl under your arm, Sidney. Harry was next. He walked over and took Song Lee's hands. They sashayed down the center. He stopped, put his arm up, and Song Lee twirled around and then curtsied. Harry bowed so low, his curly hairs almost touched his knees. Bravo! Bravo! Harry flashed his white teeth. Song Lee looked down at her black shoes. When I came down with Miss X, everyone laughed. It might have been the most embarrassing moment in my lifetime. The next time I went through the line, we had new partners. I had Ida, and Sidney had Song Lee. When Sidney went over to take Song Lee's hands, he had his eyes closed again. He didn't want to dance with no girl. Instead of looking where he was going, he walked right into her and he bumped heads. Song Lee put her hand on her forehead. There's a big bump with red mark on it. She was trying not to cry, but everyone could see the tears coming down her cheek. Harry raised a fist at Sidney. Miss Mackle sent Song Lee to nurse. We'll have one more dance, Sidney. You must be more careful. He should keep his eyes open, somebody shouted. Miss Mackle walked over to Sidney. Are you dancing with your eyes closed, Sidney? Sidney shook his head. No, man. No, they're wide open like this the whole time. And he made his eyes look like giant white gumballs and they revolved around and around. Miss Mackle then turned and put the needle on the record. Harry raised two fists. I know what he was thinking. Double revenge. When we returned to the classroom, Song Lee was sitting in her chair with an ice bottle held against her forehead. Just before the 3 o'clock bell rang, Harry offered to take the bottle back to the nurse for her. Song Lee thanked him and then went out of the classroom to get her coat. As the rest of the class lined up to go home, Harry said, Hey, Sidney, meet me at the corner. I've got a present for you. You do? Harry flashed his white teeth. I do. Sidney waited for Harry at the corner. What are you giving me a present for, Harry? For that trick you did today when you were dancing. Trick? Sidney couldn't remember. You bumped into Song Lee while your eyes were shut. Oh, yeah, now I remember. Stupid old smelly old stinky old girl and had to go to the nurse. So where's my present? Right here, Harry said as he flipped the ice ball over and poured it down Sidney's back. Yeah, that's cool, Sidney said as he ran up the street waving his arms in the air. I'll get back on this to you. I'll get you back. You just wait and see. I'm going to tell my mom. I looked at Harry. Where did you get that bottle of ice water from, Harry? From Song Lee. I told her I'd return it to the nurse for her. Harry then flashed his white teeth. I did say I'd return the ice-cold water inside. I cracked up. Old Sidney had it coming, didn't he, Harry? I waited at the school steps while Harry returned the empty bottle to the nurse. Sometimes, when Harry tells you he's going to do something, he leaves the horrible part out.
Arthur, you just sat on Nadine. DW, Nadine is not real. On the children's television series Arthur, DW, Arthur Reed's younger sister has an imaginary friend named Nadine. The entire Reed family understands that Nadine does not actually exist, but 4-year-old DW does not agree. To DW, Nadine is a good friend that provides a normal, healthy way for her to cope with the increasing independence that develops with age. But imaginary friends don't just exist in cartoons. In the August 2002 edition of Parenting Magazine, Christina Frank estimated that as many as 60% of children under age 7 have imaginary friends. Imaginary friends are an extension of pretend play, which is vital to childhood development. Pretend play allows the child to learn firsthand about roles, relationships, power, and control. For some children, an imaginary friend is personified by a toy or a doll, while in others, the playmate is completely invisible to everyone except the child. To the child, the imaginary friend is quite real, and the child may insist that his or her friend is included in family conversations, served at the dinner table, and tucked into bed at night. To better understand the world of imaginary friends, it is important to know why children create them and how children can benefit from their existence. The prime time for the appearance of these imaginary playmates is between ages 4 and 5, although some children create them as early as age 2. There are actually many reasons why imaginary playmates come about. According to Marjorie Taylor, Ph.D., the author of Imaginary Companions and the Children Who Create Them, some kids invent them because there's no one around to play with at the moment, or because they need someone to talk to who can keep a secret during a stressful time, such as a divorce. Besides being a companion, an imaginary friend can also serve as a buffer between the child and the parents, as it allows the child to voice his or her opinions without taking responsibility. Taylor states an example. A child does not want to tell her mother that she's afraid of going down the drain, so she says it's a pretend friend sphere. When the mother reassures the friend, she's actually reassuring her. Another reason a child may create an imaginary friend is for the feeling of control. A child can boss around or talk to his or her imaginary friend without backtalk. Other studies show that miscellaneous feelings, such as loneliness, boredom, or anxiety, can lead to the appearance of an imaginary playmate. Imaginary friends most frequently appear in the lives of first or only children, as they feel the need to create a playmate when a real one is not available. Generally, imaginary friends help children deal with the normal anxieties of growing up and teach children about the real world ahead of them. No matter what the reason was for the creation of the imaginary friend, parents will be relieved to know that there are benefits to having an imaginary companion. One benefit is that the existence of an imaginary friend expands creativity in the child. The detailed images and personalities of imaginary friends in the heads of kids display their creative abilities. Studies show that most children are very specific in describing their imaginary friends, as they create unchanging genders, names, sizes, and personalities for them. Imaginary friends also build self-confidence in the child, allow the child to display emotions, and teach the child appropriate manners and good habits, such as sharing. Besides helping the child at the time of the existence of the imaginary friend, it has been discovered that positive characteristics follow through the entire life of a child with an imaginary playmate. Before the 1940s, it was believed that children with imaginary friends were abnormal, shy, and insecure. However, current studies contradict those beliefs. Children with imaginary friends are now stereotyped in positive characteristics. For example, Jerome Singer, Ph.D., a professor of psychology and child study at Yale University and co-author of The House of Make-Believe, has conducted experiments testing the results of imaginary friends. Singer's studies conclude that children with imaginary friends are typically more independent, more cooperative with teachers and peers, generally happier and less aggressive than their peers, and have a richer vocabulary. Singer found that in interviews with many top creative people in their fields, all reported memories of an imaginary playmate. Marjorie Taylor, Ph.D., as previously mentioned, has discovered that children with imaginary friends are often very social and have lots of real friends as well. It is obvious that the positive results of having imaginary friends are endless and are extensively displayed in children. In his 1994 book, The Man in the Water, Roger Rosenblatt said, "Children love to be alone, because alone is where they know themselves and where they dream. And if in that dreaming children